This is Calicats of the Calicatster, and this is a review of, I think, episode 7 of Prodigy, Time Amok. Instead of Amok time, Time Amok. The tachyon storm hits the ship, separating the crew in a similar way to the couple of Voyager episodes were about that. There was a silly episode about a black hole event horizon with a crack in it. There was a silly one about 2 Voyagers, and one had baby Naomi Wildman, and the other one didn't. Or the other one had a dead one and was alive in the other one. And it was Harry Kim's from the other timeline. That was another one. They did a couple of those. There was the time travel relativity episode. This one's not connected to those. Really. The diviner and the dreadnought. The guy's named after a G.I. Joe bad guy. The dreadnought. Get a call from the Ferengi telling him where the ship is. Even though if it's 4,000 or 7,000 light years away, how does that work? How does the communications work in Star Trek? It doesn't make sense. They wouldn't get that message ever. But sure. The crew is doing the fox, the chicken, and the hen thing with the boat. Put them all on the boat. If they fail at that, they admit they stole the ship, but then they hit the time storm. They're in different timelines. Rock Tug is in the timeline that's the slowest, which means that's probably likely where it goes. The end, and that's where it goes. The other ones, Jacob Pogg's the first one to the ship blows up, so it's similar to Cause and Effect as well. Yeah, so that episode of TNG, a couple other ones. It's very Star Trek like, blow up the ship. Yeah. Then the Dal is playing a game. Not Dal. He gets blown up. then the Murph is one of them in one timeline, but they can't do anything with that. The computer, the Jacob Pock, then the Medusan guy, then the other ones, then Murph. Then they're putting together the warp converter coupler thing, and then somehow they're able to send a message to the vehicle replicator 4,000 or 7,000 light years away to regenerate the to make a copy of the bad guy, the dreadnought, and send him, who looks like something from Star Wars or Transformers from Michael Bay, either one, and actually the everybody else, the dreadnought attacks, and then Gwyn leaves a message somehow that goes through the other timelines so that they can read it. Dreadnought manages to delete the hologram, but in the other timeline, because it's all in flux, the timeline, they can. Rock Tog is still in her own timeline, and because time is moving slower, she's able to reboot the program and everything, even though in her timeline technically none of that stuff happened yet, because if she's slower than the other ones. So they didn't need to reboot anything, they just needed to go through the time warp. But oh well. Anyway, it's all convoluted because that's how that works. There's also a multiverse gag, Star Trek multiverse gag. Different, but the multiverses in the storm work differently in space and time. She saves the ship and the crew, and ultimately that's cool because she's got like this. She gets out, and there was this really cool end scene where she apparently learned all of how to reboot the hologram and how to put the power converter together. and this giant rock girl. So he learned math and stuff, I guess. That's how that works too. Yeah. Well, I guess the implication is that they're all capable of doing anything, so they're basically Wesley, which is fine. I mean, Eugene Roddenberry has something to do with it, so Roddenberry's son. So there you go. Many, many years ago, I met at a Star Trek convention. Eugene Roddenberry. Yeah, in the 90s. He had a three-legged dog back then. I wonder whatever happened to that dog. Anyway, so, yeah, a three-legged dog. Yeah, yeah, so, anyway. Yeah, there's quite a lot of convention stuff from back in the 90s. I knew about that. The next generation doesn't. But anyway, this was a very good episode at the end of it. For something 20-some minutes long, it has a good message about like teamwork and stuff, even through time warps. It does beg the question: how does energy work in that universe? How at the end apparently broken the broken robot, the head comes back on as the credits roll, but how did they get the robot there? Was it always there? What I don't how yeah, there's some really strange but yeah, they're talking about time travel and a tachyon storm, so maybe that's alright. And maybe the rock creature's brain is able to assimilate like sciences and math that you wouldn't actually know. Maybe that's possible. A rock creature's brain is built as silicon, so maybe she's got their equivalent of a positronic brain. It turns out she's actually like really smart, like the positrons. Even though positrons aren't really it describes an antimatter thing, but obviously it can't be. The Data's brain was a positronic brain. It can't be antimatter; it would blow up from contact with matter. So yeah, he had a positronic brain, but it wasn't really even on the commentary track for Star Trek Generations, David Carson and Vermin and them were all like, yeah, we don't really know what that is. We just gave Data this brain, we don't know what it is. But yes, it's funny how a lot of that stuff is just then they thought it up at the spur of the moment. Like there was no thought put into some of that stuff. So, and this one they had a lot of thought put into it. They had the chicken and the fox and the boat scenario. They did, yeah. They didn't figure that out. Yeah, or did they in the flashback in the other timeline? So she didn't need to reboot the program because in her timeline it never happened. So all she needed to do was just say, okay. There it is. The pattern buffer. Yeah. And on a military vessel, everything would be in triplicate. So, backup. Even if the robot managed to shut it down. How did the robot know that? It copied Chakotay's voice, but it was like, what? No. Why aren't there other holograms in the ship, though? It's kind of an odd thing. Yeah. Yeah, so back in the day they had, like, they would say stuff at conventions that because the internet was new, or didn't exist yet, and then was new, they couldn't check them, like, the whole, on Deep Space Nine, the reason Norm is Morn, basically. Because it wasn't an NBC show, and they couldn't give credits or royalties to Cheers, but they wanted to have a guy like Norm from Cheers in the bar. So they did. They called him Morn instead. So they could pay homage to a 80s TV show while the show was running. Yeah, that's an odd thing. That's what they did. 80s through 90s, it was still around, 93. Made over 300 episodes or something. But yeah, they had Man from Uncle references and stuff like that. Armin Shimmerman said that Quark was based on a politician from the 90s called Ross Perot. He did say that a couple of times, not several. Even on the Regis and Kathy Lee show, he mentioned that. So you could look that clip up. But, and some people say, no, that's impossible. Why would he reference... In 1993, that guy was really big. It would be like now, somebody on a modern TV show referencing Elon Musk. Going like Elon Musk, yeah. Character thing. And he's like, oh, Elon Musk, yeah. It'd be like that. No, somebody popular now was mentioned. Yeah, it did make sense. Yeah, they did a bunch of other stuff too. They didn't think about the NETS9. They just did it. They weren't thinking. They thought, let's just have this wonderful scene on the holodeck with the robot, the guy and all that. Because we ran out of money. That's why the battle scene just abruptly ends with them down on the planet. They ran out of money. They were just like, well, we couldn't finish the space effects, so we'll spend the last half hour of the finale just on the holodeck, hanging out with Vic Fontaine, doing, like, reminiscing and stuff. So space battle wasn't that important. Like, no, it actually kind of was. Just neglected to show it. Yeah. And there's no way out of that, whenever they do that, Deep Space Nine. Or at least Voyager showed it. At least Voyager said, okay, we're going to bring it up to the last minute. You think, like, well, at that point, Voyager was later, so... But Enterprise ruined it again. Enterprise was like, okay, well, we don't need to, once again, we don't need to show the actual speech at the end. Why not? You could cut out the part where Trip died and put the speech in the end. Ooh, and the speech, yeah. Archer's speech. I mean, they kind of put it at the end. They should have just had him saying it. Ladies, gentlemen, and aliens, welcome to the formation of the Federation. Our new charter would be to explore strange new worlds, seek out new life and new civilizations, and boldly go where no one's gone before. And other things get mentioned. That kind of thing. Just do that. But no. So, yeah, Star Trek has done things that make sense and some things that don't make sense. Yeah, we were there. Yeah. We were in college when Deep Space Nine aired, so yeah. No, I was not responsible for Death Wish. That was my Pillar's son. I had nothing to do with that. I didn't know him. I had nothing to do with that. So, anyway, so which was originally actually with that one. That was one of the Q where it doesn't have anything to do with this, but Q. And originally the script was just that Q should die and kill himself. That's what it was. Q should die. Ooh, that's fascinating. Let's do a story about that. No, he was just angsty and he was like, Q should die. I was like, no. There was no Q in Prodigy, fortunately. Q should not die. He's stupid. The writers aren't infallible. They'll do what they do. Time Amok is, of course, a switched anagram of Amok Time, having nothing to do with Amok Time, having more to do with Time's Arrow and Time Trapped, a novel and a story, and Timeless and other time ones. A little bit timeless, yeah, because they had to build something out of Seven's head in that one. Her head, her actual head. And it was a head at the end. So yeah, how did they transport the thing? Oh. Anyway, but Trek Yards may be onto something about time travel, dimensional universe thing. They might be onto something there. We'll see. Not saying anything. We'll see.